Okay, so here's recording 3, which will be how to do the island. Now, as I mentioned before, my suggestion how to think of our island. Let's see if I can present it. We can look at a picture of an island while we're talking about it. We're going to think of our island as 2 of these boxes that we've just been drawing in our exercise sitting together. We're going to draw one. We're going to draw the countertop, and it's going to be similar to this, but it's just going to have a big flat plane, 4 feet of length and depth, but only 1.5 inches of height. And then we're going to intersect on the bottom another box that has our island width and island depth, and have it meet the bottom edge of that cube. That to me is the easiest way to think of the geometry. When we get into our section, we'll learn that the building of it is slightly different than that, but that's how we're going to start it. And I have here just a blow up of the information that I gave you on that page of Canvas. You may want to do the same thing when you're sketching it. If you don't have your computer accessible to your drawing space, then you can also just copy paste and print out this information. What I have on here that's key, just to give you an idea, this is how these fit onto a sheet. So if I darken this edge here of a title block, you can see that these 2 views will fit, but your spacing is minimal. So you don't have a lot of wiggle room. Now, if you accidentally measure and this ends up coming over here, in a real life construction drawing, you would have to move it and redraw it. In my class, you can break your guideline if you have to, but if you follow these numbers that I give you, you should have it lined up properly. So the points that I'm giving you are this point and this point. So this point is 4 5/8 over, which is also in your information that's on Canvas. 1 3/4 down and 4 5/8 over. And that is from the edges. So and they're in regular measurements because we're in paper space. So we're going to go 1 2 3 4, 1 2 3 4 5, 4 5/8 over, and then along that line we're going to go down 1 3/4 inches. So I'm actually a little low there. I want to pop it up a little higher. So 1 3/4 inches is going to actually put me right here. So that's going to be my starting point. My other one is along that same line. But because I have to contend with this title block on this side, it's going to be over 5 1/8. So I'm going to find 5 1/8 here. And that's going to be my other starting point. So when I'm going to do my first view, first things first, we switch to a new scale. It's the one that has the number 1 on it. 1 inch for every foot in real life. 1 inch equals a foot. However, I'm still starting with drawing a regular roll isometric shape. So the first thing I'm going to do before I even take any measurements is put in some guidelines. So let's make sure I've got a 4H pencil in my hand. I'm going to switch to a keen sharp one. And instead of generating up from my leading edge, I'm going to start from this back corner. So I'm going to start with the back edge of my countertop. And I'm going to put in some guidelines. And then I'm going to measure 4 feet at 1 inch equals 1 foot. And I can do the same thing as long as I'm careful. And I have my T-square nice and square. I can draw in my next guidelines. Get another point. And if I measure where those meet, I should be right at 4 feet. See how I'm at 4 feet there? And see how I'm at 4 feet there. So I've just drawn the front face of my island. I've just drawn this countertop. Now I need to draw the leading edge. How high is that going to be? Well, I know how high it's going to be. So I've just accounted for my countertop size, 4 feet by 4 feet. Now my thickness of my island top is 1.5 feet. So I'm going to put in my guideline here coming down, or excuse me, 1.5 feet. 1.5 feet thick countertop. That's some serious look you'd have going on right there. 1.5 inches. You have a 1 inch and 1/2 thickness to your countertop. So I'm just going to make a short little dinky guideline coming down. And then I'm going to measure it using, and I can get to 1.5 inches really easily because now that I'm in a bigger scale, I have this lined out in actually 1/4 inches. I have a 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch, 3/4, and 1 inch because they have divided. I've been able to get more precision because I'm at a larger scale. So again, this is how we're using our tool and understanding how the scales shift. We're at a detail. If I was in 1/4 inch equals a foot, I couldn't give you a good indicator of an 1.5 inch tall countertop. So doing a little teeny tiny ISO would not only be really difficult, but it wouldn't be very true. By being in this scale, I can pretty accurately go from 0 to 1 1/2 inches. An inch and a half. That's going to come back. And go. That's going to come back. Very good job on that one. You do want to make sure you're really precise with these, which I was not on this side. Let's make sure we get it just right. Now, this is some place where this is a common student pitfall number 1. Sometimes my students just take these out and intersect this with this. But remember, if we look at an island picture again, what we're seeing is the back edge of this island, and it is straight up and down. So we need to make sure we account for that depth. If anyone's ever seen the artist Escher, he draws things that where the lines can connect, but they don't connect in the right way, and so you get stairwells that lead to nowhere or back up on themselves. You can create things with lines that you can't create in real life, but this needs to be something that's going to look like real life. So that's why our countertop has that same depth all the way around. So now we've drawn our countertop. How do we attach our island to it? And here's a couple things we know. We know that our countertop, and there's a method to why I've given you these dimensions in this order. So use this order to help you think about how you're going to draw. So our overhang is 1 inch. So that means that if our island was to, even though we're attaching our cabinet base underneath our island, we're going to do the measurements as if it was intersecting with this top plane, because that's going to help us with the height and help us relate to something that we can see. So we need to make sure we have a 4-inch pencil in our hand, and we need to realize that where our island base is going to come up, if it came all the way up and intersected our island top, it would be doing it 1 inch in on all the sides. It doesn't come all the way. So we need to take our scale and account for that 1 inch lip. Now, does everyone understand this inch I'm talking about? Ask me now if you don't know why I'm talking about this inch of overhang. If you don't get this, it means there's 3 other people who don't get this and aren't willing to ask the question, so ask me. So I'm gonna draw in a little guideline here, in the right spot, to account for my little inch of overhang.
So Amy, you're basically saying that the countertop is not flush with the cabinet.
On
That's
the side faces.
Okay.
So what I'm talking about, yeah, is because countertops have a lip. They stick out just like probably wherever desk you're sitting at has a little part of it that sticks out over the legs. It looks a little cleaner that way. And it's easier for you to clean the top of the countertop because you can put your hand underneath the lip to catch crumbs when you're cleaning off the top. So we need to account for that because we're going to measure our height down of the overall height of our cabinet, but we need to make sure that we're measuring it down from the correct spot. So we're going to come over another inch. Along here. Make some little guides to measure. So now we know on our on this side too. We know that that front face of our counter is actually not this wide, but this wide. Because it's, instead of being 4 feet, it's actually 3'10", because it's an inch inside our island on either side, inch inside. So now that we know these 2 points, we can put in the height of the front of our island. So we can put in our vertical. It'll still line up here. And make sure you're working in light lines because we're going to refine out the toe kick. So the reason why we did this is because rather than having to do the math and extrapolate a point that's on the bottom side, we know that from the bottom of our island to the top of our countertop, it's 3 feet. So that's counter height. So now we can come and measure 3 feet. But it's not 3 feet from here, and it's not 3 feet from here. It's 3 feet from the intersection of those guidelines because it's recessed back a little bit. So that's our 3 foot point. Now we've measured our 3 feet. We're not going to draw a line through that whole 3 feet because this is where you start to get into one of the tricks when you have overhangs and overlaps and isometrics. We can't see all 3 feet of that height. We can only see the amount of height that's visible from the bottom of the countertop down. This will make more sense to those of you who've already been in an illustration class, but it's something to think about. So we'll do the same thing. So then also we know that on this side, our height going down is going to come from here. And it's also going to be three feet of total height. Now going back, I've given you the measurement of the depth going back. So we'll put in a guideline for it. And we'll go here. Now see, look, we've gone through, we covered overhang. Island height from finished floor to top of counter, 3 feet. Now the next step we're on is the depth. And sure enough, that's the next measurement I gave you. So like I said, there was a method to my madness in this. 29 inches. Or 2 feet 5 inches. That's an easier way to think about it on here. So we're going to come back and go 2 feet. And 3, 4, 5 inches. And then we'll take our line up. Only up as far as it meets the countertop. However, when we measure, if we did this correctly, our measure will be 3 feet from this base to our guideline. So you can see if you just do those measurements from this outside edge, your island will look too tall. It will throw off the proportion. It's really important to stay close to your proportions already, because as with anything that's ISO, because we see vanishing and we're drawing even, the proportions will always look a little bit off. So if you're actually off on the proportions of your drawing as well, it'll start looking really off. And we can connect this as well with a light guideline. But we have to remember we haven't accounted for something yet. We haven't accounted for our toe kick. Before we get to that, let's measure and make sure we did this right. If we did this correctly, when we lay our scale down, the front face of our cabinet should be 3 feet 10 inches. Because again, it's our 4-foot countertop, less an inch on each side for overhang. And sure enough, when I measure this, you can see it's 3 foot 10. But we haven't accounted for the fact that since you're going to work at this island, or whoever uses it's going to work at it, they need to have a toe kick. They need to be able to stand a little closer to the countertop. So we need to come back over here and find 4.5 inches, 3, 4.5 inches of height and 3 inches of depth. And we need to carve that out. We'll take our guidelines and go out that way, and then take the front edge across here. And we need to account for the floor now, because that space where the island meets the floor is now going back here. But how far is it going back? It's going back 3 foot 10. So we need to measure that. Now I'm going to do a little darkening, and hopefully this island will start coming into focus. You can darken as you go along. As always, the more you darken, the more graphite you're going to be carrying around on your paper. However, if it helps you to understand it to darken, then by all means, darken away. Yeah. So I did a little midpoint darken so you can see how my island's starting to take shape. And hopefully everybody can. Let's add a little bit more detailing to it. We've now counted for all of these. I want to have 2 doors and 2 drawers on my island. In my elevations, I think I did drawers that were 7 inches deep. Coming off the base. Which if I account for my 1.5 inch of counter depth is going to be 9 inches coming down. So I'm going to make a mark over here at 9. Draw a line across for where my drawers would go. I want to have 2 drawers. So since this is 3'10", half of 3'10" is 1.5 feet plus 5 inches, so 1'11". So at 1'11", make a line going up to separate them. But they can't just be like that, right? They've got a little bit of depth. Because otherwise I can't open that. It's just etchings on a face. So I have to come back this direction and account for the depth of my drawers. So I need to give myself 3/4 inch. It's a good depth for that. So I'm going to add this guy on. Door. Drawer. Thickness. 3/4 inch. And I'll throw that measurement on canvas. I'll update that to add that. Just to give that measurement. You can actually mark 3/4 inch on here because we have that precision at 1 inch equals a foot scale. And I can put another line in. And now I've accounted for the thickness of the faces of my doors and drawers. However, I also need to throw in a line going this direction to account for the break between the drawer and the door. Is everybody with me there? Does everyone understand why I just did that? That's another common mistake students make. They forget the thickness. So now I have a basic island that has a slab front. I can add my measurements if I was doing shakers. You don't need to worry with a shaker on this face for your doors about altering thickness. A lot of times that center panel is just thinner than the rails and stiles of the door for the shaker. So you can just add the panel, whether it's coming in 2 or 3 inches, just make sure you're doing it accordingly. And we'll go over that a little bit next week because you'll have time to refine this while you're also working on your section, and that's a relatively short lecture. But in our last few minutes, let's go ahead and take a look at how we do the other one. And I'm going to work a little more quickly with it because from the start, it's basically exactly the same as this one because our countertops are going to look the same. You can see how close you're going to be. Like I didn't even take my guideline close enough, 4 feet. There's just not a lot of room for error to fit these on the page. And if you get off and you have to use 2 pages, that is totally fine. But hopefully if you use those measurements I gave you, you'll be able to get it all on one. My guidelines were long enough. I'm just going to stretch it out over there. You can see how super important it is with this, and that's part of why I left this in my view this time, so that you can see how important it is to make sure that you're square with your T-square while you're doing this, or that your ruler on your board is tight if you're using a actual drafting board. Down our 1.5 inches from the intersection. Straight and square. I'm going to make sure we drop these down and make the edges. Square edges. And of course, countertops don't have to have square edges. If you want to go nutty and make OGs or some kind of fun rounded edge, more power to you. But for this class, I'm just requiring the plain mitered edges to your countertops. So now we've got that countertop again. We're going to do our same thing. And we know really that we only need to know that inch in at these little edges. So I'm not going to make as many guidelines, but we need to think. I've now rotated my view. So I'm not dropping down off that front anymore. I'm now I'm looking at the back side. So I'm accounting for this open space where your knees are going under. So where I need to be looking at my inch in is over here at this corner. I need to figure out where that point is. That is 1 inch in off of this front edge, which is now the back side of this view, and 1 inch in off this side. And because of the angles of these things, it's going to be a little farther in, where this was kind of close here, where these are going to meet is way out here. So it makes a difference of where that edge is. So this is where you're going to get caught up. See how you've got a fair amount of space right there too. You're going to have that same thing here. And I just think the geometry makes more sense if you draw the whole thing in and then refine out your toe kick. So let's measure that. One, 2, 3 feet of height off the floor. And then we'll put in our depth, which is this direction. And it's going to be 2'5". So there's our 5 inches and our 2 feet. And it's going to go up. And then it's going to come back in this direction. 3'10", not 4 feet. And I will measure this on your drawings when you turn them in. So we're going to find 3'10". Take it up. And we only have that amount that's visible because we have so much overhang. We're just getting a peek at the backside. But it's enough of a peek to show an idea of what's going on back there. We would probably have an elevation detail if we were, say, applying a tile or doing some complicated connecting with a slab at the back, something like that. We would have that detailed another way. This is just to give you a relative idea of what these sides look like in relation to each other. Now we still have to put in our toe kick. And the biggest thing is thinking through where you're measuring. This is what's going to help you start understanding how these drawings go together. So we're going to measure our 3 feet of depth and our 4.5 inches of height. And put in our toe kick. Now we are also looking at another one of these sides. So this is student pitfall number, I'm not sure. So now you guys should all be able to get 100% on this because I'm giving you all of the places where people usually make mistakes. The students forget to put this thickness in because this thickness of cabinet, let me see if it shows up in this view. You can't really see it in the rendering. See if you can see it in the photo. a little tough to see in the photo too, but you can see the profile of the edge of this cabinet. So don't forget to add in a little line here showing, you can see the face of your cabinet. And don't forget to measure down and put in the line showing the separation between the door and the drawer. And now when I darken this, I have
Amy, while you're doing that, I have a question about the toe kick.
uh-huh.
So is it typically just only on one side of the island? I know it doesn't need to be under where the bar area is, but on the sides, do you ever see a toe kick on the sides or is it just on one side?
It kind of depends on the purpose of the island. If you were doing a larger island and you had more of a setback before your stools came in, then you might have toe kick on the sides as well. But it would just depend on if you were going to need to be standing at that edge and working. This is a small enough island that this will generally be the work side. But if you had an island where, say, you had stools along two edges and you had cabinetry along two edges, then you might have toe kick on two sides.
Okay.
But think about how one of the biggest trends for a while in islands has been those waterfalls where it wraps up and around and down. Those show you how the toe kick on the side is not super important because they're actually showing a solid piece of slab going all the way across and down.
Oh yeah. Okay.
If that helps make sense.
Yeah, thanks.
You should sharpen your pencil more than I'm sharpening mine. Mine are coming out a little fuzzy because my pencil's getting dull because I don't have a sharpener in my demo desk. But that will give you an idea of now I have two sides of my island. And then it's up to you to personalize it beyond here if you choose. If that matches what you did in your elevations. You can also keep it very simple. This outline, that's the major lines of the island, is what's going to be in your HB pencil. Use a medium weight pencil for any detailing like you might put like shaker insets, or if you wanted to have anything fancy on the back side of your island. Anything you get applied to the back will be applied on top of this line. So you can see how on this, where I applied a shaker panel and a little faux shiplap inset, I added depth. But typically, construction wise, shaker panel fronts just have 3/4 inch rails pieces and side pieces, but that center panel is thinner. So you don't need to add on to the front depth of your cabinets to account for having shaker in the front. But because this backside is a solid piece, back detailing will get applied. Does that make sense? It's just kind of the rule of thumb on it. And we'll talk a little bit more about why that is when we get into the actual construction slice through view of our island, which will be next. So for Saturday, I need to know that you're practicing isometric pencil techniques, and I want to see these. By Monday, I want to see this outline. Don't have to have the title block filled in. Don't even need to make it dark if you're not sure you did it right. But I want to know that you can get this blocked in. And then next week, when I do the demo, I can do a little detailing demo if that's something people are interested in, as well as doing the demo and information on the section, which will be our next assignment. All right, last chance for questions, 10 more minutes. If anyone has any.
Hi, Amy.
Yes.
So I had a question on, not on this, but the elevations.
Okay.
So I did mine like too close to the, what is it called? The outline? What is, sorry, the thing,
Okay.
the
hold on
line,
one
the
second.
box?
I'm gonna go to my desk. I'll end the recording and switch
Okay.
views, and then we can talk about that.
Okay.
2 seconds.